What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Moguls. My name is Findlay-Shirras, and on today's show, we've got co-founder and CEO of Senspoint, who is a scientist, a founder of nonprofits, innovator of sensory experiences, has a PhD from UC Davis in computational organic chemistry. That was a mouthful. A subject, and this is going to be cool, that relies heavily on visual cues to understand complex organic connections. His name is Hoby Welder, and this is an amazing fact about him because I just talked about visual cues for this computational organic chemistry, and you've been blind since birth.
I have, yeah, thank you very much.
So, I mean, that is something that I want people to just sink in for a second, that he's done all this stuff. He's got his PhD. He started these nonprofits that actually help other people who are blind or visually impaired go to these, camps to learn about chemistry. And you've had, I think this is kind of funny and ironic, blindfolded tasting events for wine.
So thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me on the show. This is a real honor. And yeah, we founded Accessible Science. Me and my business partner co-founded Accessible Science back in 2012, which is a nonprofit to teach blind and visually impaired high school and early on college students how they can do science successfully. And that's sort of that was part of my work while in graduate school. That is on hiatus now, as I work very hard with my business partner Justin Vallandigham to build Senspoint Design, which is our company where we offer sensory experiences. The blindfold is one of the tools that we use, but it is only one of the tools that we use to get our folks who we work with thinking outside the box, really allowing them to know about their other senses, and really ultimately using that information to solve problems. So we give our clients solutions, and we provide them with basically the skills they need to be more innovative and really drive success with creativity and innovation.
Well, tell everyone a little bit more about like your whole story, because it's just amazing that you've done all these things. Like you even got recognized by Barack Obama for some of the initiatives you've done. I mean, and how you've managed to do the things that you've done, and like the hacks. I hear that you've got these hacks that you've created for yourself so that you could achieve some of these things that some people would think need a person who can see. So please share your story, because it's just amazing reading it.
Well, thank you. It's very humbling, and it's an honor that you say that. So I, starting from the very beginning, had amazing, and still do have amazing parents who are just so supportive and so willing to tell me, not baby me at all, and basically say, hey, this is your life. You need to take responsibility for it, and you need to, be practical with what you do, but go forth and conquer, do something with it. And they never treated me differently than my sighted brother. I might have had slightly different chores, but we all worked very hard to, achieve everything we achieved. One of the things that's great about my parents is that, we did all the work on our house ourselves. So even when there wasn't homework to do, when my brother and I were quite young, we were all working on the house, all four of us. The amazing thing that they really instilled in us, both of us, me and my brother, is a sense of work ethic and understanding that it's okay to work really hard. And it's okay to get home from, a day of school, like an 8 to 3 day of school, and work for another 5 or 6 hours, either on homework or on the house or whatever. So hard work has always been and work ethic has always been a big part of my family sort of culture. So when I got to college and started my undergraduate career also at UC Davis, I had a strong work ethic, and I just didn't mind, putting in, I would say, 80 to 90 hours a week to accomplish very, seemingly very visual tasks like organic chemistry classwork and hard sort of advanced math and all of the chemistry classes that need to be taken in order for someone to get a major in chemistry. So working that hard was just sort of part of life. And that's one thing about being a blind guy living in a sighted world, is that you gotta be willing to work harder, because my whole goal is not only to be as successful as my sighted peers, but to be better at some things that I do, because if you're not, the employer or whoever you're working with is going to be very prone to hire someone who's sighted, right? There's more of that. So I need to prove, and this sounds weird, but I need to prove my worth maybe a lot more poignantly and a lot more. It's a little bit harder to show people, hey, look, I'm blind, but you still want me for this job, right? And I didn't know how science, I knew I wanted to go to graduate school. I was kind of a nerd as an undergraduate, and I knew that I wanted to go to graduate school in something, but I also knew that I didn't want an assistant to be, looking over my shoulder the whole time while in graduate school, and I thought that would be the only way for me to study organic chemistry, which was my real passion. So I got a degree. I also loved a couple of history courses I took because I wanted to get a minor in history. And that ended up turning into a major in U.S. history as well as chemistry. And I was actually planning, I had applications printed and ready to apply to various history programs for graduate school throughout the country. And I was really almost ready to decide to make that ultimate decision that I was going to study history because I thought it might be a bit more accessible to me when I met my graduate advisor, who would become my graduate advisor, Professor Dean Tantillo, who's a computational chemist and leads a computational chemistry research group at UC Davis. With a lot of convincing from Dean and other peers and a couple of summers working in Dean's lab, I was convinced to apply to graduate school at UC Davis, did so, and ended up getting in and getting my PhD in the group of Professor Tantillo. And really, in order to, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds of the chemistry that we do, but in order to make a lot of that accessible, we had to come up with some ways of 3D printing molecules that I would study so that I could feel them and really understand them. And it was really in graduate school when I, ironically, sort of at the beginning of my graduate tenure, when I got a call from Francis Ford Coppola's team asking me to help them innovate truly blind wine tastings at their winery. And that was, those were purely vetted to be hospitality experiences until we met up with their sales team in 2012, sort of a year into doing these blindfolded tasting experiences for hospitality folks who would come up to the winery. We had about 2 per month. They were planning for 1 per quarter. And these are based, by the way, off of an experience that Francis had in Asia, where he tasted some food and wine under blindfold, but it was a little bit gimmicky. And he thought, we need to do this at our winery, but we need it to be led by a truly blind person. And that's how we got set doing that. We ended up working a lot with their sales team, traveling around the country. The nice thing about being a computational chemist is my laboratory is my laptop, so I could carry it wherever. And Dean, my advisor, was very willing to let me just travel and pursue this other sort of interesting option while in graduate school. And I fell in love with the community that I met in the food and beverage industry and realized that these tastings could be, and this way of thinking using the blindfold could be brought much further than food and drink. So over the course of my graduate tenure, I worked with Justin, who I knew, who has an extensive business background, sort of more the sane part of our business, I would say. We chatted and built and talked about, what if we put together a company where we're both entrepreneurs. That's how we see ourselves. And what if we put together a company where we use sensory and all 5 senses as a lens to get people thinking differently and to drive them to solutions to problems they've been having. So after graduate school, I graduated in December of 2016, and in March of 2017, we launched Senspoint, and it's been a very exciting process. It's been a very exciting opportunity for both of us to build and grow, and one of the conversations that we have a lot of times is that we're still finding our niche. It takes time as a small consultancy to find your niche in the industry, and we're really dabbling in a lot of things now and figuring out where we sing.
Yeah, I was going to ask, your ideal clientele. When you think about your ideal clientele, what comes to mind?
It's a really good question. I think the ideal client for us is someone who is, really has a team of people that are thinking in one way and they want to just slightly change that and create new opportunities, new ways of thinking, and new ways of solving their own problems, their own internal problems. So in the real estate industry, I think it's really important that we focus in on all 5 senses when we sell a property. So we're here at Inman Connect. I gave a general session talk yesterday all about how we can build and how we can think about our senses beyond eyesight. I was fortunate enough to share the stage with the wonderful Sherry Chris, who is the president and CEO and also lead visionary of Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. And she and I had a great dialogue about, after doing a blind tasting, of course, had a great dialogue about changing the way that we think about real estate. So much of selling a house these days is about the look. You go into a house and you think about, okay, how does the front facade look? How does the driveway look? Okay, you go inside and maybe you get there 5 minutes before the open house starts and you sweep around, you look around, you make sure everything looks okay. But you don't really dig down and bear down on the other senses. And there's, when people are looking for, and this I'm just talking about real estate because I think it's so important for this audience. We are new. I'm going to be very transparent here and say that we are very new to the real estate world. So real estate clients are new to us. And the point is that, a lot of times we buy houses, we think houses are sold by the look, how many bedrooms and baths they have, and maybe what schools they're near, what parks they're near, what the neighborhood is like that the house is in. And I'd love to ask you a little bit about that work with Parkbench and really understanding neighborhoods, because that's a big part of home buying for a lot of people. But there's this interesting thing that happens, I think, to a lot of people when they step across the threshold of a house. It takes them maybe a few milliseconds to realize this is the place for me. Right? When you find that dream home, and you know what I'm talking about, okay, I'm here, right? And oftentimes we'll overlook a lot of the things that we thought were important, like schools, number of beds, number of baths, how the kitchen looks, these sorts of things. Because there's something, and it's not all visual. Definitely it's partially visual. But it's not all visual that grabs us when we find that house that we just love. And I think we can create, we are all about understanding lifestyle and understanding experiences. And I think what we do in the real estate world best is working with teams of agents and brokers and getting them thinking, getting them to understand their senses better and getting them to think about, hey, what is this? What opportunity could this be? That is pushing us forward, and how can we think about real estate through a new angle? And we like to provide that new angle, that way of saying, hey, go to the open house maybe 20 minutes before. Don't only think about excuse me, how the bathroom looks, but smell it. Spray some cleaner around, because I've been around to countless open houses where everything looks clean, but then you walk into the bathroom and there's a smell of urine, that's just there. Yeah. It's like, okay, let's clean this up. It's not that hard to spray some pine salt down or whatever. The other thing.
If you want to go extra, and depending on the house, depending on the budget, you got scents, you have candles. Yeah. So many people now are in these essential oils because they make you feel a certain way in the workplace.
Exactly. No, exactly. And going the extra mile, run a load of laundry. Don't just bake the cookies. That's an old trick, but a goodie. But run the laundry system, run the dishwasher. Make it feel and sound lived in. Because the fact of the matter is, you're creating an opportunity for. I just don't think about real estate as being transactional. Real estate to me is about defining where someone is going to spend at least 16 hours a day. For the time until they sell a place, which oftentimes is if someone finds a home they like for the rest of their life, right? So it's about, and I really think, one of the things that's been very important in my work all along, from the nonprofits to working with Senspoint to a lot of other projects that we're working on, is mentorship, right? And honestly, I think of real estate agents, the best agents are truly mentors, right? They can interview their clients and actually see sort of a future for their client before that client can see it for themselves. And then they can try to tailor the properties that they show that client to match that lifestyle and to really hold their hand and be a mentor through the process.
So when you talk about showing clients, I know you've done stuff with UI and UX, because there's so many now technologies that are trying to help provide service to the end consumer. The agent is using these tech tools, is using these platforms. There's a lot of agents out there who are working with companies to create that experience on their own website platform. So I don't know if you have any like best practices. If you were to share, like, what are the things to think about when you're creating the user experience of your technology, your platform, or your own website?
I think it's to make them as inviting as possible, as simple as possible. We don't want to confuse people. So a lot of times what we guide our clients to think about is that simpler is better. You know, it's the 21st century, the bustling 21st century. We can create all these fancy, you know, and I do like some of the AI that goes into, and virtual reality that goes into a lot of these abilities to show properties. But again, it's very visual. I think if we could do it, you know, add a sound component to it, it would be great. But ultimately, simple is better. And I have to say, yeah, technology is a wonderful thing, but with Senspoint, what we do a lot of, and what we encourage our clients to do a lot of, is to listen to what someone is telling you that they need, right? To listen to the client rather than trying to show them all this different stuff, all this different technology. Sometimes it's better to be low tech and sit down and, you know, have a coffee, have a glass of wine, and just try to get to know the person. You know, I think I had a great conversation with AJ from a famous photography company in the real estate world last night, and he was saying, you know, what he does is he gets to know the people and he gets to know the house that he's photographing so well, and you can't do that with technology. You have to just get out there, and it's more work, right? Yeah. But you have to get out there. It's all about having the conversation, and I think being a really good listener. That's the best thing we can possibly do.
There's a stat. There's this cool company called Gong. They create sales data analysis, you know, by transcribing audio files from sales and doing analysis of what makes sales happen and not happen.
Sure.
And they said 95% of customers they feel like they're not understood, and the salesperson that helps them just feel like they get them is the person who wins.
The biggest piece of advice I could give the real estate industry, and we do seminars and workshops on this all the time, and I really want to get more into this line of work, the biggest advice that I can give is to listen, ask questions that matter, and just get to know your client, right? And we can use sensory innovation to teach that, but it's all about sensing them. It's all about having that conversation, knowing what they like, you know, and connecting up with them in a deep way.
And what do you say now? What do you say to the agents? And this is like an entrepreneurial thing in general, where it goes. It takes time to build relationships and to get to know people and have these conversations. And people are thinking that that's too slow. Whereas I personally have seen data without going too deep into my company Park Bench, but the whole premise is, when you have a neighborhood platform that adds value to the homeowners, the business owners, you now have a reason to go talk to them.
Exactly.
And to say, hi, I would love to interview you and feature you on the website. And not only is this going to be great content for social media and SEO, but the whole purpose of this is so that I can ask you what you do, what you need, what you like, what your goals are, who you are as a person. Because you may not need my services now, but at some point you might. And if I've had this conversation and my competition hasn't, then you might actually want to work with me because you feel I actually know you.
Exactly. No, and that's a really interesting point you make. And I think that, yes, you know,
so there's a lot of agents who go like, yeah, it's a lot of work.
Right, no, I know. And the biggest thing is, working for yourself is a lot of work. And let's face it, we are all in the business of working for ourselves, self-promoting, and it takes time, and it does take those relationships. So I, working very hard last year in my community, joined Leadership Petaluma, is what it's called. It's put on by the Chamber. There's programs all over the country put on by Chambers of Commerce, all about learning how to be a leader in your community. And you meet some of the best people, and you get out there, and you realize so much of your community that you didn't even know existed. How the sewage treatment plant works, how the postal system works. And these are things that we can know as savvy agents. And yeah, it takes time. Yeah, it feels sometimes like we're not necessarily getting there. But we are. The more people we meet, the more we network, the more we converse. And I got to tell you, it's not about what we know. It's in every sense of the word, it's about who we know. And I'll tell you, Justin and my business partner, Justin and I are building, and this is a very challenging task, as I'm very quickly learning, we're building a spirits brand. We're launching a vodka and a gin probably within the next 4 to 6 months. And it's no different than real estate. It's no different than the design work that we do. It's all about just getting out there and utilizing either previously established or by establishing, solid core relationships. So because I love talking to people and because I love building a network, we're able to find advisors for this company who are immensely helpful to us, basically helping us strategize, people who are veterans of the industry, helping us strategize because we listen to them and we talk to them and we really care. It's that genuine ability to care and to be welcoming and to be friendly. That's what people like. And that you can get places, you can make money just by being a humble and genuine listener. I really believe that.
And one of the things that this world, for good and for worse, is with all this technology and all this marketing advertising, is becoming a lost art.
We don't know how to talk anymore.
And I get why people don't do it anymore. It's because they actually deep down are like, well, what do I do? And what do I say? And what do I ask? And that's why I say, and you said it perfectly, one of my fundamentals, if you ever want to make sales, is just be genuinely interested in the person. If that's the only thing you remember in that entire conversation, I'm sure the rest will figure itself out.
And let me tell you, this is just case in point, but exactly what you say, if you're genuine and the person you're selling to likes you, they're going to refer you to everyone they know who might be buying a house, who might be needing whatever service, If you're genuine, people will help you sell yourself. And that's, I think, a really big deal. And I think that's something that's often overlooked. You're right. The being able to communicate is sort of a lost art. And I think we need to bring it back.
It's a skill.
And we need to,
practice. You gotta just get out there.
And let me tell you, this is another secret of advice that I think is very true and very valid. It is this level of communication and just downright genuine listening to people is becoming a lost art. So if you do it, you're going to have a leg up on everyone else.
Yeah.
Right?
So we got an audience of agents, brokers, team leaders, startup founders, investors, people in residential, commercial. How can they get in touch with you? And what are some of the challenges and some of the needs that you have that maybe if they can help you out with, that you would want them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. Our website is senspointdesign.com. That's www.senspoint, SENSPOINT, design.com. So no later E on the S. And you can also email us. Both Justin and I receive hello@senspoint.com. So reach out there. And a lot of our needs are in terms of just getting more well-known, growing our business. We're doing something that sort of doesn't exist, which is a daunting task. And we just need people to know that this is a valuable asset. It's a valuable skill. And check us out.
What are some of the problems you think you can solve for some brokerages, for some tech companies out there?
Helping, really what we do is we get people thinking about, we use sensory as a lens to get people thinking outside the box, thinking more about their senses, and ultimately to come up with innovative strategies to sell, to stage homes, to, in terms of brokerages especially, to listen. We do whole workshops, sometimes involving the blindfold, sometimes not, all about listening and paying attention. And these are things that people really need. And we can help out also in terms of strategic plans for staging properties, ways to listen to a house, to feel a house, to stage aromas. That sort of thing is more granular, but we do that along with this very sort of global idea of, and when I use the word global, I mean just broader sense of focusing on the client first, being able to sense that client and being able to listen to that client. So those are the problems that we can really help with. We can help you innovate and ideate and come up with strategies. And we might use some design thinking, quite often design thinking, to get to the goals that we want to get to. But that's really what we do.
Hoby, hey, it's great.
Thank you very much for the conversation.
I love your story.
Thank you.
As always, guys, if you have not subscribed to the show and to the podcast, we got amazing guests that get you to think in other ways, like Hoby. So stay tuned for future episodes. And thanks so much.
I'm excited about what you're doing, and thank you for the opportunity, Grant.
Cool.